Takahashi, you can see it?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm going to start.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see it.
Opposition since a revolutionary wave engulfed the state. It's now equally enthusiastic in its support against Syria's President Bashar al-Assad, but the concern is whether America's decision to take sides could backfire on its closest Middle East ally, Israel. Artie's Ganesh Chikhan looks at the possible repercussions of U.S. policy.
As nations in the Middle East and North Africa are torn between the struggle to bring about change and the struggle not to let that change
Oh, this is 2011, right?
Yeah.
This video prepared.
ruin their lives, Washington views the Arab Spring as an opportunity to finally see some of its longtime foes crumble.
Even though Iran is not an Arab country, the Arab Spring could spread to.
Absolutely. And I think in many ways it's a matter of time before that kind of change and reform and revolution occurs in Iran as well.
Under the umbrella of Arab revolutions, Washington is also beating the drums of regime change in Syria, Iran's closest ally in the region. Violence within the country has been widely condemned. Countries like Russia and China call for both sides in Syria to talk and end the bloodshed, while America is blaming Assad alone.
The transition to democracy in Syria has begun, and it's time for Assad to get out of the way.
I think Assad's days, just like Gaddafi, are numbered.
Let's hope that Bashar Assad is next in line.
They've overthrown Gaddafi. They're going to have a proxy or client government in Tripoli. The next step is Syria. They want to overthrow Syria next, to take advantage of any movement that exists in Syria to overthrow the Assad government. Not to have a more democratic government, a more humane government, but a government that is allied with the United States. And after Syria, the next target will be Iran itself.
Watching regimes go down one by one, American politicians are filled with new hopes and aspirations. Some went as far as to predict the Arab Spring would spread all across the world.
What this is all about is the Arab Spring, and Bashar Assad is next. And even places like China and Russia and other places, they are very uneasy. This is about people aspiring for freedom, and that's what the Libyan people have just achieved.
It's wishful thinking on the part of John McCain, but it speaks volumes to where the real orientation is in Washington, not just of the Republicans, but the Democrats too. I believe that the United States government feels, in the aftermath of the collapse of the Soviet Union 20 years ago, this year, that there's one single power left in the world. So they would like to overthrow the government in China. They would like to overthrow the government in Russia. They would like to overthrow the government in Venezuela and Cuba, or wherever people are independent of the dictates of Washington. But I think it's a fantasy.
But when it comes to Syria and Iran, Washington doesn't seem to be just fantasizing about revolutions. It actively fosters the process by pledging support for anti-government movements there. But some say this might eventually turn against America's closest ally in the region, Israel.
If you were to see the rise of a popular revolution with very extreme Islamic fundamentalist elements there, what you have with Hamas could essentially spread to many more places, and then you'd have a much larger population base in an extremely hostile position towards the very existence of Israel.
By throwing its support behind revolution makers, analysts say Washington is seeking to increase its influence and control in these countries.
Let's look at how things have been in the control department so far. Egypt. Thousands protest against the U.S.-backed military there that's still in power. Last week, Egyptians stormed the Israeli embassy, enraged by the killing of 5 Egyptian border guards. In Libya, a Washington-supported leadership is taking over, but the country is at risk of plunging into tribal war. Syria, the opposition includes those with radical agendas. So the aftermath of the so-called Arab Spring remains very murky and difficult. Yet Washington seems to be using the Arab Spring to fulfill its long-time goals. But the fear is it might end up getting the opposite of what it wishes for and undermining the whole region. I'm Ganesh Chikhan reporting from Washington.
So basically, what we are talking about is what actually we were discussing, Uno-san, is that you said, okay, United States is advocating this liberalization movement, this democratization movement. Say, okay, we need to support the people who are rebel against their leaders, because those leaders like Gaddafi.
Need to speak this microphone. I need to make a lot of effort to.
Go aside. I will talk louder. But so the leaders like Gaddafi, the leaders like Mubarak, the leaders like Assad, they are not pro-US. They are like, for especially, okay, let's take Assad. He is very much pro-Russia. So it's not. Assad is not in the interest. That doesn't support the U.S. and the U.S. interest in the Middle East. So U.S. is trying to support the democratization movement, not only in the Middle East, but also in South America, even going as far as Russia and China. So they are hoping that there will be an uprising and there will be a regime change, because a change is better than what it is right now. So they are willing to support whoever is going to overthrow the governments, but they do not necessarily have the best interest of the country in mind, because what's waiting behind those rebel movements in the Middle East in this case are actually radical factions that are rising to trying to rise to power, and this is actually what we have seen now. But we know that behind those the Arab Spring, there are some pretty radical movements, factions within the Muslim Brotherhood who are under the influence of Saudi Arabia, who are very intolerant and are actually much more radical against Israel. So the point of this article is that basically United States plays a role within the Arab movement, supporting rebel movements in order to promote democracy. But what they're really promoting is overthrow of governments that do not support the United States. Thereby they hope to gain influence, but actually this strategy could actually backfire if those factions actually come to power, because they are much more radical in for example, their sentiments towards Israel, and may actually also be much more radical against the United States. So this overthrowing and this one-sided support for popular resistance against Middle Eastern regimes is dangerous. And what should happen is that we are going to promote dialogue between the leaders and the rebels, and promote stability in those countries. That's actually that's what Russia is at least promoting. So what I would say is that actually I can kind of feel that Russian television has a point here.
Which point?
The point is that actually it seems to be mainstream thought in the United States that it is in their best interests that...
You mean the point is to kick Bashar Assad out?
Kick Assad out, kick Gaddafi out, kick all the leaders who are not in support of the United States out. They're trying to promote it.
We're back to the discussion early this afternoon. And if, kick Assad out, so what's happened?
So kick Assad out. Well, at least it means that it would be a popular movement who kicked it out. Now, what could happen is that actually a radical movement would come into existence and could be a threat to Israel. So it could actually destabilize the situation in the Middle East.
Always American action is they don't consider for the
follow-up.
What's following next?
Yes. So basically they are more of a system-oriented, dogmatic proponent of democratic movements.
We never do that like Iraq happened. If that Saddam Hussein takes Saddam Hussein out, but they didn't consider for what's following happened.
Right.
Syria, if they're going to Assad out, but America also they don't thinking about following government what's happened. This is the problem.
Well, I think that what happened in Iraq was more of an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, taking revenge, creating their influence in the Middle East to show some balls in the world and show some muscle in the world, and especially to their American election base. I think that this was also on the political agenda for Bush. He wanted just to show that it was serious and they were doing something about this threat in the Middle East. So they create this axis of evil, and they started to say, okay, no more. The shock at that time after 9/11 was very big, and in response to that, they started to invade Iraq, right?
Yeah, my simple question asking for you. Okay, we try to kick Assad out, and what happened?
I don't think that they have an answer to that. So basically they say, okay, there's a democratic movement, then we need to rebuild the country. So we're going to give them support, and we're going to support the local government, etc., etc. But that is a long shot, because you don't know who will come to power, right? So it failed
same opinion that they said in the case of Iraq.
So in Iraq they failed because they actually overthrew Saddam Hussein. And what came the majority of people came into power, but they were not interested in democracy at all. So they basically excluded the Sunnis, alienating them and creating a power vacuum in the less densely populated. So immediately, IS came into existence and took control over a lot of. So they basically, the U.S. created instability, and within that instability, IS took a chance and started to create their caliphate.
And then Syria is kind of Russia very heavy support Syria.
Yes.
So America cannot take him out, right? And Turkey cannot take him out. So Assad will going to be stable in that country. How do you think?
Assad? So Assad, well, he didn't lose, which was amazing.
But how do you think? They don't do any election forever. As you know, that because Alawite is a minority, he cannot win.
Right.
So Russia supports him.
Russia supports him. Well, I mean, we shouldn't overestimate the power of Russia. I mean, okay, sure, but if we look at Russia, if we look at their GDP, if we look at how isolated they are...
I know that America will retreat anyway.
No, I think they have very little to win.
Russia?
No, United States, because they also know that they created a mess
actually
there.
Russia remained, even if their power is not so strong,
but
like America. But America cannot involve in Middle East anymore, right? They decide to retreat.
Yeah, so they are not interested in foreign policy anymore.
No oil, They don't. They have no interest. Afghanistan is good enough to put power on Syria, and America also against Iran. They have more interest in try to sanction for Iran, but not Syria.
Right.
They spend money.
They
believe this is useless. So how do you think about Assad? Then this question
about Assad, whether he will stay. He's already winning the show.
Yeah. So just we want to accept him as a president.
Right. Well, I mean, I also think that the main power against Assad is actually the Kurdish.
The Kurdish is a very small minority.
It's a small minority, and they are actually attacked in the back from Turkey.
Turkey attacked Kurdish.
Yeah, in the back.
Yeah.
So that's why we are not united in our efforts to eliminate Assad.
So
Therefore,
my simple question is, how is it going to be Middle East next 2 to 3 years?
well, I think that basically everybody should stop interfering in the Middle East.
Exactly. So it means Syria remain, Iran get power, Saudi Arabia retreating, Israel cannot be get involved in. How do you think?
Israel cannot involved in.
Involved in Middle East. They try to attack in Syria, they try to attack Iran, but they cannot win.
Israel?
Yeah.
It attack Iran?
Iran in the Syria. Iranian troops, they attack Iranian base in Syria.
Hamas?
Hamas, not Hamas.
What's the name? In they are
Iranian.
north.
Iranian in Syria. The Iranian troops still exist in Iran, Syria.
They went there to support Assad.
Rebel, yes, against rebel. Insurgency. So Assad they had confidence, okay, they will win, supported by Russia and supported by Iran.
Yeah, well, I mean, basically, I don't think that anyone will have an answer, because IS is not beaten yet, even though
yeah, still exists, but not so strong power.
Right.
ISIS is moving to Africa.
Mm.
Now is the Sub-Saharan, they have big power in Sub-Saharan. As you know, this is actually the Mali and those areas, they have big power now.
Yeah, there is no
Nigeria,
Mali, southern part of Algeria,
exactly.
Northern part of
Boko
Nigeria.
Haram, shake hand with Boko Haram, get power there.
Right.
But not anymore Middle East. Because Iran and Russia get power support
But
for Syria.
one of the problems with moving out of the Middle East is that one of the good things of being a rebel army within the Middle East is that basically if you can control the country, you have immediate access to oil, and that means immediate access to money.
Yeah, that's right.
Not in North Africa.
No. North Africa, big oil field, Mali, Nigeria.
But I mean that's in the south. That's not in the north.
North, but they have big power in the north.
Yeah,
Nigeria.
but they will not be able to. Well, I would be very surprised because they don't have access to oil in north.
No, not yet.
Nigeria.
Not yet, but Nigeria government cannot touch them. It means very risky, right? And ISIS moving to Middle East to Sub-Saharan.
I don't think they're gonna get out of the Middle East because they need oil. They need money in order to support.
No, they cannot touch anymore. This Kirkuk is Kurd occupied. Or they don't have any authorized oil field yet anymore. Right?
So that means that they will be starved, or they need to get money directly from Saudi Arabia. But
by the way, America is the largest oil field now they have, so they are not interested in oil field
so much anymore.
And America try to control oil price, right? Saudi, America don't want Saudi get more money. Try to control the oil price, and the Middle East is also. They cannot be chasing for oil money in future.
What is your take on the relationship between Saudi Arabia and the US?
No, not anymore. Saudi Arabia is looking for shake hand with Russia. Yeah, looking for opportunity doing something with Russia. Saudi Arabia, just yes.
Yeah, but there's no alternative. I mean, Russia's market is so much smaller than the US.
But they are, actually...
And also they're a fellow oil producer.
GDP is 1/6 of the United States.
And actually, Saudi Arabia tried to screw Russia over the show.
Okay, don't misunderstand. Russia, Putin is very similar to the France, Macron. influential his voice is.
Yeah, okay. The voice is influential, but still, they are both suppliers of oil.
No, the economic power they do not have, but very influentially in the Middle East. Everybody follow him.
But so, Saudi Arabia's interest is to keep the oil price low, so to get as many.
No, interest to keep the oil price more higher.
Well,
America push them down.
Actually, I believe that because Saudi Arabia has the lowest cost point.
Yes, of course.
Then basically they can control the market if they just reduce the price, because they put everybody out of the market. Venezuela, I mean, you cannot actually.
No. Saudi Arabia, they cannot control oil price anymore. They need Russia. They involve Russia for oil price control. Russia and Saudi Arabia, America, three major oil production countries now. So Saudi Arabia very much keen to shake hands with Russia.
Well, if that's the case, then the United States will be screwed.
No, Trump is they try to push oil price down.
Exactly. So, but will they be able to do that by themselves?
This is power balance. Saudi Arabia, Russia.
How is the United States in terms of costs to extract oil?
Okay, and recently America, the oil price, certain level of price and above, they can get profit.
Yeah.
And this kind of oil production is very flexible, going up, and they can make more production.
But United States is rather expensive, isn't it?
Compared with Saudi Arabia, yes,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So it's so if Saudi Arabia can push the market price below the cost price of the U.S.
No, currently too low for them, so they want to increase price. But America don't want to certain level of higher amount of cost price, oil price. She tried to appropriate price, not lower. Lower, very low. They can't make.
They can't. They basically their shale oil operation completely went bust under the low oil price.
So Middle East is Russia and Iran will occupy those areas in the next several years. America retreated. Israel cannot influence those areas, right? And then America is next question is America also they much more target for Iran and give them sanction. How do you think about Iran?
So why is Iran why is that so much on their radar? Because if Saudi Arabia is actually looking to Russia, that means that the interest of the United States in Iran, basically, what is their interest?
Iran is a different aspect of Middle East. America's aspect, Iran is a different aspect of Middle East. Iran is independently America's four. Do you remember three axes? Iran and North Korea?
Yeah, North Korea. The evil axis, yeah.
One of those.
Yeah. But, I mean, I thought that was always given because they wanted to make a gesture for
why?
Saudi Arabia.
Iran is actually supreme leader Khamenei. Khamenei is always talking about kill America, right? So
but the same happens in everywhere on the street in the Middle East. And it really kill America is very, very common. If you go to Syria, when I was in Syria, everybody says that.
No, you should see this.